Hey everyone, good morning. How is everyone doing today? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot. Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you all for joining me today. This is episode 143 of Hockey on the Spot. And today, we're right back on schedule. I obviously did 2 videos yesterday, but now we're back on schedule. And we'll now continue on with the 30 teams in 30 days. And for today's team, we're going to talk about the Dallas Stars. And the Dallas Stars, they're one of the more interesting teams to talk about this offseason. Maybe even the most interesting team to talk about this offseason. Last season featured a brand new look for the Dallas Stars in every way, shape, and form. A new general manager in former Detroit Red Wings assistant GM Jim Nill. A new head coach in former Buffalo Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff. A brand new uniforms and brand new players. They got Sean Horcoff from the Edmonton Oilers in a trade. They got Sergei Gonchar from the Ottawa Senators in, I believe, in a trade to help out their blue line. They got Valeri Nichushkin, 10th overall in the 2013 NHL entry draft, and he played right away and made a big impact as one of the star rookies in the league. And then they made what was the biggest trade in the National Hockey League last offseason, sending Louis Eriksson and a couple of big-time prospects in Riley Smith and Matt Frazier to the Boston Bruins in exchange for Tyler Seguin, Rich Peverley, and another prospect. But Rich Peverley was very good for them up until his heart problem where he collapsed on the bench and was subjected to miss the rest of the year with heart surgery. He'll be out for the beginning of this year as well. Hope he comes back soon and recovers, because that is a huge loss for the Dallas Stars. They needed him for the playoffs last year because he is a playoff performer. There's no doubt about that. And as for Tyler Seguin, though, he went on to take his game to the next level after having a rough lockout-shortened season. He came to Dallas and became the top-line center and was the leading scorer on the team with 84 points. His wingman, the captain, Jamie Benn, was second with 79 points. They were one of the top duos in the National Hockey League last year. And the Dallas Stars, who entered the year with no expectations at all, not even expected to go to the playoffs, were just absolutely fantastic. As far as the season itself, at the end of the year, they finished the year 40, 31, and 11. That was good enough for 91 points. That was only good enough for 5th in the Central Division. However, the Dallas Stars were still lucky enough to make the playoffs and just beating out the then Phoenix Coyotes for 8th in the Western Conference. The Dallas Stars were the last team in the entire league to clinch a playoff berth and win the final wild card spot in the West. Yes. They were not expecting to go far in the playoffs, and they did just that. They gave the Anaheim Ducks a major scare in the first round, coming back from a 2-0 series deficit to tie the series at 2, and then came very close to winning Game 6 to tie the series at 3. Before Anaheim went on that late period flurry. But all in all, the Dallas Stars would go on to lose to the Anaheim Ducks in 6 games in the first round. They knew they weren't going to go far anyway, but they gave it their all. And with any time you don't go far in the playoffs, you need to upgrade. And that's exactly what the Dallas Stars did. They got rid of the players that they felt were holding the team down and got players that were only going to make the team better. Here, they bought out defenseman Aaron Rome via compliance buyout He's still on the market. He's still on the market and would be an excellent asset for a team that needs a solid shutdown defenseman. And they also lost centerman Dustin Jeffrey, who was a very good fourth line player for them last year. He went on to sign with the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, I mean, he didn't play at all in the playoffs, and he barely even played in the regular season, but the opportunities he got, he made the most of. Once again, he's the 26-year-old is now a member of the Vancouver Canucks. As far as additions were concerned, they brought in a couple of goaltenders, and Anders Lindback coming over from the Tampa Bay Lightning, and UC Rhinus coming over from the Toronto Marlies, really, the affiliate of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rhinus played a lot in the American Hockey League last year and was very, very good, I believe, as the starter, as one of the goaltenders for the Marlies. Lindback, he was the backup to Ben Bishop in the Tampa Bay Lightning last year, and he's actually a pretty, last season, last year, not a very good year for Lindback. 8-12-2 with only one shutout. And he played all of their playoff games and did not win a single game. So it was not a good tenure in Tampa Bay for Anders Lindback, who at one point was expected to be a starter in the National Hockey League. His overall career record, 34-35-5 with 3 shutouts. But he's 26 years of age, so he still has another year to grow and maybe get better. Lindback comes in to be the backup goaltender to Kari Lehtinen. He's one of the bigger goaltenders in the league at 6'6", 210 pounds. So it's more of a stand-up type goaltender. And Lindback, to me, despite that record, is really an underrated backup goaltender. He does come up key in some situations. So I think he'll be an excellent addition to their goaltending depth. But he and UC Rhinus will definitely battle for the opportunity to be the backup to Kari Lehtinen. They also brought in forward Patrick Eaves, who split last year between the Detroit Red Wings and the Nashville Predators. He was dealt to the Predators at the deadline, so he's coming over from the Nashville Predators. And for Patrick Eaves, he's just really a depth player. Will add on to their fourth line. He's 30 years of age. Only had 2 goals, 3 assists, and 5 points last year. -7. Only 2 penalty minutes and 53 shots on goal in 30 games. All his points came with the Detroit Red Wings, not a single point with the Nashville Predators. So he may not even play much. He may just be the extra guy. He may just be the extra forward in Dallas, but it's a good extra forward to have. Comes up another player who can, when playing at his best, come up big. But the real big... And then they also brought in forward Ales Hemsky coming over from the Ottawa Senators. They signed him to a 3-year contract. Hemsky split last year between the Edmonton Oilers and the Ottawa Senators and was very, very good for when he came over to Ottawa. With the Edmonton, he played 55 games and only had 9 goals, 17 assists, and 26 points. He was a -13. He only had 20 penalty minutes, but he only had 94 shots on goal. But when he got traded to Ottawa, he was much better through 20 games, 4 goals, 13 assists, 17 points, a -2, 4 penalty minutes, 44 shots on goal. So overall, 75 games played, 13 goals, 30 assists, 43 points, a -15 rating, 24 penalty minutes, and 138 shots on goal. But he was very good when he went over to the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa even tried to keep him around. They tried to retain him, but he chose not to to come back to the Ottawa Senators, and the Dallas Stars took action. This guy has great hands, very gifted hands, an excellent playmaker, makes a great first pass, more of a playmaker than a goal scorer, and he's got great speed as well. So he'll be an excellent addition to the Stars' top six. He's only 30 years of age, so he's still relatively young. He's got plenty of years left in his prime. But the real big addition for the Dallas Stars came in the form of a trade. Remember when I said last year the Dallas Stars made the biggest trade in the National Hockey League? Well, they made the biggest trade in the National Hockey League once again. Second straight year in which they did so. Acquiring another former Ottawa Senators, another player that's coming over from the Ottawa Senators, and the reason for the Ales Hemsky signing was actually because of the acquisition of this player. They acquired forward Jason Spezza from the Ottawa Senators. They also got a prospect in that deal. And in exchange, they traded away forward promising young right winger Alex Chiasson, 2 prospects, and a second-round pick. Again, as I said, Chiasson is another guy with great hands, and he's only 23 years of age. I actually like him and think he has a lot of promise. Not a very good defensive player, though. He was a -21 last year, but a very talented offensive player with great hands. As far as Jason Spezza goes, though, they needed that extra push at center, and they needed a guy who could play on the second line. They needed a second-line center that could back up a guy like Tyler Seguin. And Jason Spezza, this is the first time that he goes to a different team. He has been an Ottawa Senator his entire career, through 75 games played last year, 23 goals, 43 assists, and 66 points. Not his best season, but a very good season for him, even though he wasn't the leading scorer for Ottawa last year. He was, though, a career worst -26. He was such a bad defensive player last year. This is the lowest he's ever been. 46 penalty minutes, 223 shots on goal, though. But he was ready to leave the Ottawa Senators. He was not happy playing there. And this is the first time he goes over to a new team. You know, he's 31 years of age. Just a former second overall pick back in 2001. So what he brings to the table is size, speed, excellent hands, and power, and great first pass ability. A power forward / playmaker with great speed and very gifted hands. This is a player who can use the body when he wants to. And he likes to use the body at times. So for Jason Spezza, this is exactly the type of player that the Dallas Stars were looking for after failing to land Ryan Kesler. I believe there was talk that they were in the Ryan Kesler sweepstakes, and they were also interested in Paul Stastny, but ultimately things rounded out together to get Jason Spezza, and this is a key addition because this adds another gifted offensive player to the Dallas Stars. They now have 2 centers who will make a deadly presence on the ice, and that was really the ultimate reason for the Ales Hemsky signing, because of the chemistry those two had together when Hemsky came over at the trade deadline. They put up a lot of points together in the short time Hemsky was there. And now they're together in Dallas. And now the Dallas Stars have 2 excellent forward duos in Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn on the top line, and Jason Spezza and Ales Hemsky on the second line. Those 2 are going to be deadly together. They'll have Valeri Nichushkin playing on that top line with Seguin and Benn. And then the second line left winger to play with Spezza and Hemsky will most likely be Eric Cole. Or at least that is the expectation. They could also slot Cody Eakin in on that line. but he's expected to be the third line center this year. Once they get him signed, they have to sign him first. But for Jason Spezza, kind of has to be a rebound kind of a year for him as far as his defensive play and his puck possession and his abilities to keep the puck, not turn it over. The one thing about Jason Spezza this year, in a sense, this is a player kind of trying to prove himself this year. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. So this is a big deal because if Spezza truly doesn't prove himself, whether the Dallas Stars are going to re-sign him or not is going to depend on whether he can prove himself this year or not. If he doesn't have a good year, then most likely the Dallas Stars are going to let him walk. If he has a good year, then the Stars will probably sign him. I'm sure he's going to be a player that a lot of teams are going to be keeping an eye on as far as his production level this year. So we'll see how he performs with the Dallas Stars this season. Which brings us now to some of the big questions. Other players who they still have as free agents, Cody Eakin and Brendan Dillon are both restricted free agents. They're going to get both of those players signed, though. You can count on that. Both of those players are going to be signed. Cody Eakin has proven to be one of the better two-way forwards in the game, and he's still very, very young. He's only 23. And he has the potential to be a good, versatile third-line center who could also play the wing if slotted on the top six. He's a player with tremendous amount of potential. And then Brendan Dillon is one of the young, upcoming two-way defensemen in the game. Plays a strong game, 6'3", 225 pounds. Loves to rush the puck up the ice. Another 23-year-old. He'll be 24 in November. Last year, big year for him. 6 goals, 11 assists, 17 points in 80 games. A +9 rating. And 97 shots on goal, although he did have 86 penalty minutes. And he only played 2 playoff games. He missed most of the playoffs. Didn't have a point, was a -2. 2 penalty minutes and only 3 shots on goal. I believe he got injured during the playoffs. Or was it? Yeah, no, he missed the beginning of the series. He missed the first 4 games. He got injured at the end of the regular season. So Brendan Dillon's health is going to be key here, and he's going to be a key blue liner for the Dallas Stars for many years to come. Which brings us to some of the big questions for the Stars this year. And one of the bigger questions is, will Jason Spezza fit in? That remains to be seen. Again, he's used to an offensive type system under Coach Paul McLean. He was very much used to his offensive system. Lindy Ruff is more of a grit kind of coach who believes in more of a two-way game, rushing up the ice when necessary, and then getting back and playing defense when necessary. A two-way kind of coach. Spezza more of an offensive type player. So we'll see how he does. The big question is, will he be able to adapt playing as a second-line center and not being the go-to guy? Will he really like that? That's him. That is up for debate, whether Spezza is going to enjoy being a second-line center or not. We'll see. That's a big question, and that can affect the player's performance too. So we'll see how he does with the Dallas Stars this year. Is Kari Lehtonen the right goalie to help the Stars get to the next level? He was the former second overall pick back in 2002 behind Rick Nash. And he hasn't exactly, in my perspective, really lived up to that status. He had a very good year last year. Last year was actually maybe one of his best years, if not his best year. 33 wins, 20 losses, 10 overtime losses, and 5 shutouts through 65 games played. He was healthy, and he led his team to the playoffs. The big question is, can he lead his team past this first round? When he was with the Atlanta Thrashers, he had nothing but injury problems. Injuries were a big issue in his career. He's been healthy for the most part since coming to the Dallas Stars, though. And he's actually been pretty good for them. Even though they haven't been to the playoffs in most of his time there, he's been very good for them. But they got to still watch a guy like Jack Campbell. He's a goaltender on the rise. Former 11th overall pick in 2010. They have high expectations for him. And you can only keep him in the minors for so long. He's going to come up and be a very good goaltender in the near future, I have a feeling. And that could knock Kari Lehtonen out of his starting job. And he'll battle both, and he could actually go on to battle both Anders Lindback and Jussi Reinus for the backup job. Can Tyler Seguin do it again? Can he repeat the kind of numbers he put up last year? He had an unbelievable 2011-12 year where he was the leading scorer of the Boston Bruins. And then after that, he dipped in the lockout shortened year and was relegated to the fourth line. Last year, he comes back as the top line center and looks like the player that they picked second overall, that the Boston Bruins picked second overall. Now he's got to come in and prove that he can stay consistent as far as his compete level and his ability to perform playing on the top line. That's going to also be a factor of how well the Stars do this year. How can Dallas improve its special teams? That was one of the big weaknesses for the Stars last year. Their penalty kill was 21st in the league at 81.4%, and their power play wasn't much better. Wasn't any better. 23rd at 15.9%. If they want to be a playoff team, their special teams has to be better. They were one of the best teams as far as their 5-on-5 play, but their special teams needs to be better, and Dallas needs to get off to a better start at home. They were one of the worst home teams in the league to start the year. Their success came on the road at the beginning of the year. They were not a very good home team at the beginning of the year, and I believe overall they finish as a better road team. And then will the defense hold up, or do they need an upgrade? That is the big question. They have a lot of defensemen in their system: Alex Goligoski, Trevor Daley, Jordy Ben, Brendan Dillon, Sergei Gonchar, and then one of Jamie Alexiak, Patrick Nemeth, Cameron Gaunce, and Kevin Connaughton. That will be the makeup of their defense this year. But speaking of Sergei Gonchar, he actually is one of the big questions and concerns that I have this year. Will the Dallas Stars be able to rid themselves of Sergei Gonchar? This was a guy who he was one of the big disappointments for the Stars last year. And at now 40 years of age, his career looks like it's pretty much coming to an end. Especially with the way he's played over the last few years, particularly last year. Through 76 games, only 2 goals, 20 assists, and 22 points, a -12 rating. He only had 20 penalty minutes, so he stayed out of the box. But he only had 89 shots on goal, and he has that big shot from the point. He's got another year remaining on his contract. Will the Dallas Stars be able to rid themselves of Sergei Gonchar midway through the year or at the trade deadline? Because they feel that he is not really going to be a big part of their team this year. I actually would not be surprised at all to see Sergei Gonchar a healthy scratch at points in the year and not even getting in a playoff game this year, because his career is pretty much at an end. This will be his last year in the National Hockey League. There's no doubt about that. So we'll see. As we now take a look at what the Dallas Stars lineup could look like this year. Obviously, on the top line, you'll have Tyler Seguin centering, Valeri Nichushkin on the right, and Jamie Benn on the left. That was the top line last year, and that'll be the top line again this year. Valeri Nichushkin is a kid coming up, and he's got some real high expectations on his belt. He's going to be expected to take it to the next level. He could very well go through a sophomore jinx which a lot of players do, and if that happens, then the Stars could be in for some trouble. Otherwise, if he improves on the numbers he had last year, they'll be a very good team. And last year, 14 goals, 20 assists, 34 points through 79 games, a plus 20 rating, only 8 penalty minutes, and 128 shots on goal. And through 6 playoff games, a goal and an assist, a plus 1, only 2 penalty minutes, and 9 shots on goal. So overall, a very good year for Valeri Nichushkin, a very good rookie season. He'll be expected to double those numbers for the upcoming year. And playing with a guy like Tyler Seguin and a guy like Jamie Benn, you could anticipate that the 19-year-old is going to do just that. On the second line, Jason Spezza and centering Ales Hemsky on the right side. Obviously, they had such great chemistry together when Hemsky came over to the Ottawa Senators at the trade deadline. And then Eric Cole is the guy anticipated to play that top second line left wing spot. Eric Cole is a guy who's really isn't getting younger. He'll be 36 in November. But he did not too bad last year offensively. 75 games played, he had 16 goals, but he only had 13 assists and 29 points, and he was a minus 17. But he stayed out of the box, only 20 penalty minutes, and he had 139 shots on goal. Through 3 playoff games last year, though, nothing. Not even a point. A minus 3 rating, and only 2 shots on goal, though only 2 penalty minutes. So, Eric Cole, if he's going to start he'll probably begin the year playing on that line, and hopefully Jason Spezza can turn him back into at the very least, top 6 player, at least for a year. Otherwise, they may have to make a trade for a second line left winger and a better one. On the third line, Cody Eakin will probably play the third line center spot, but they need to sign him first. And he'll probably center Ryan Garbett on the right wing side and Antoine Roussel on the left wing side. That was their third line. That was actually their fourth line last year. That was the line posing as the fourth line last year. This year, those 3 will be promoted to third line duty. And if they were the fourth line last regular season, I believe, if I'm correct, they were the top scoring fourth line in the National Hockey League last year. Cody Eakin continues to just get better and better. He's only 23. 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points, a minus 9, which isn't that great. 36 penalty minutes, 161 shots on goal through 81 games, and through 6 playoff games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points, a plus 2, and 13 shots. Ryan Garbett, or should I say the pesky Ryan Garbett, he is the big pest on their team. He's 28 years of age, but will actually be 29 tomorrow. 17 goals, 15 assists, 32 points, plus 10 rating, 106 penalty minutes, and 165 shots on goal through 75 games. And through 6 playoff games, 3 goals, plus 2, 25 penalty minutes, and 15 shots on goal. And then you got Antoine Roussel, the other big instigator, the 24-year-old native of France, who will be 25 in November. Through 81 games, 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 points, a minus 1 though, 209 penalty minutes. He led their team in penalty minutes last year, and 113 shots on goal. And through the 6 playoff games, 3 assists, plus 3, 27 penalty minutes, but only 4 shots on goal. So yes, they were the top scoring fourth line in the NHL last year, and now the 3 of them are being promoted to the third line. And then what the fourth line will probably look like this year, Vernon Fiddler, who was re-signed by the Stars this year after being very much anticipated to leave. He'll center Colton Sevior on the right side and Sean Horkoff on the left side. I actually am a little bit concerned about that fourth line with the way that looks like. Even though you have Vernon Fiddler playing the center spot, and that's a good spot, they have Colton Sevior and Sean Horkoff playing the wings, and both of them are centers. So I don't really know how well that fourth line is going to do. I could actually see that being one of the weaker fourth lines in the National Hockey League, and that could be their weakness up front. And then, of course, they have Patrick Gies as the 13th forward, and they still have Rich Peverley. Rich Peverley, he is going to miss the beginning of the year, and actually, who knows if he'll even come back at all. But if he does, he'll be expected to come in and help their forward core and bring that veteran presence of his to the playoffs. But if he comes back and plays well, this is a guy who could very well be a nominee for the Bill Masterton Trophy. I actually feel for Rich Peverley. I like Rich Peverley. I really do. So I actually hope he does come back. I think he would make the Stars a better team than they are right now. And he would be a major upgrade from the young Colton Sceviour, who really is 25 years of age. But until he comes back, this is a player who will probably play full time this year. But they got to watch out because they also have a couple of forwards in Brett Ritchie and Scott Glennie who could both battle for spots this year as well. So I think it's going to be a little bit harder for youngsters to get into the Dallas lineup, into a lineup that consists of the forward group that Dallas has, because everyone they currently have, including Patrick Gies and Rich Peverley, are roster players. So, and Colton Sceviour is a kid on the rise. He'll be playing full-time this year. They'd have to probably knock out one of the older players like Sean Horkoff or Eric Cole if they hope to clinch a spot on the team. But Sean Horkoff was very good in the playoffs last year, though. That was the big thing. Even though he wasn't great during the regular season, in the playoffs, he really stood out. Sean Horkoff is a player who takes his game to another level completely in the playoffs. So up front, there's nothing wrong with the Dallas Stars. On defense is where the concerns come in. Their top defense pair of Alex Goligoski and Trevor Daley is one of the most underrated defense pairs in the league. Goligoski had a rough start to the regular season but got better as the year progressed and ended up being their best overall defenseman. Trevor Daley was very good too. But beyond that top pair is where the concerns come in. I mean, they do have another good defenseman in Brendan Dillon, but again, he's another player like Cody Eakin who needs to get signed. But after him, what do they got? Jordy Ben as his defense partner playing on the top four. Sergei Gonchar and Jamie Oleksiak on the third pair with Kevin Connaughton as the seventh defenseman. Jamie Oleksiak's going to come up, and he actually has a little bit of NHL experience. He's played 23 career games through 2 years. He hasn't reached that next step yet. He's expected to do so this year, though. He was their 14th overall pick in 2011. He's now 21. He'll be 22 in December. So the hulking 6'7", 250-pound shutdown defenseman is expected to make somewhat of an impact this year. I mean, and then I could see a guy like Kevin Connaughton actually kicking Sergei Gonchar out, and relegating Gonchar to a seventh defenseman. But we'll see, though. It's going to be interesting to see. But this is a very weak defense overall. This defense is the big concern for the Dallas Stars this year. They also have Patrick Nemeth and Cameron Gaunce, who will both battle for spots this year. Nemeth is a shutdown defenseman, and he came up big in the playoffs for the Stars last year. And last year in Texas, he was big too. Oh yeah, and congratulations to the Texas Stars, the American Hockey League affiliate of the Dallas Stars. They went on to become the Calder Cup champions, defeating the St. John's Ice Caps in the finals, who are the Winnipeg Jets affiliates. So watch out for the prospect pool of the Dallas Stars. The prospects of the Dallas Stars, they're coming up, and they're going to be very good. And then in goal, you got Kari Lehtinen as the starter with Anders Lindback as the expected backup, although they have both Jack Campbell and UC Rhinus, who can both battle Lindback for that backup spot. That backup job is no one's net. It's no one other than Kari Lehtinen. It's no one's net right now. Again, I think Kari Lehtinen's a very athletic goaltender. He's got a lot of talent, but I don't think he's consistent enough to really lead them past the first round, maybe even the second round, and that's stretching it. So we'll see how it all works out for the Dallas Stars in the end. As we now go and take a look at the Dallas Stars' top 10 prospect pool. Now, very interesting top 10 prospect pool as well. As I mentioned before, the Texas Stars won the Calder Cup last year, defeating the St. John's Ice Caps, and therefore, you would expect a pretty deep prospect pool from the Dallas Stars. However, for me personally, after really looking at this, I think it's a good prospect pool. But I don't think it's as great as I think many people were expecting. That's just my opinion. I mean, they only have a couple guys in this top 10 prospect pool who are NHL ready. And I don't think it's as strong a prospect pool as either the Winnipeg Jets or the Nashville Predators. I think the Predators and Jets have a much deeper prospect pool than the Dallas Stars. Brett Ritchie is the guy who is the number one prospect, and well-deserved. He is a former second-round, 44th overall pick from 2011. Had a good year last year with the Texas Stars. 22 goals, 26 assists, and 48 points through 68 games. He's a right-handed shot and hulks at 6'3", 220 pounds. And he also produced 7 goals and 11 points in 13 games in the playoffs. His younger brother, Nick Ritchie, was the 10th overall pick by the Anaheim Ducks in this past draft. Whereas Brett Ritchie's more of a sniper, and his brother Nick is more of a power forward. So it'll be interesting to see both of the Ritchie brothers in the NHL. I think Brett Ritchie is going to be a good player, and he could go on to kick someone like Eric Cole or even Sean Horkoff, a veteran player, out of the lineup. He's projected to play this year. They have John Klingberg, who was a star defenseman in Sweden, has a kind of a Sergei Zubov type defenseman. They have Devin Shore, Jason Dickinson, Jack Campbell, Radek Faksa, Julius Honka, their first round 14th overall pick from this past year's draft. Coming up from the Swift Current Broncos of the Western Hockey League. This guy is going to be an absolute stud. He's got that big shot from the point. He'll be an unbelievable offensive defenseman. Julius Honka, man, he's going to be really, really good. And then you got Patrick Nemeth, Jyrki Jokipaka, and Philip Desrosiers. I don't even know how you pronounce that last name. I think it's Desrosiers. Desrosiers, I think is how you pronounce it. But yeah, they have a deep they have a good top 10 prospect pool, but not the best one. Not the worst one, but not the best one. But so far, it is the weakest one in the Central Division through 3 teams. Of all these top 10 prospects, though, even though Brett Ritchie's the number one guy, the prospect who I'm going to highlight, the guy who could go on to be the best prospect, in my opinion, has to be. It was a really rough decision, and after really, really looking at it, but of all their top 10 guys, I have to say, believe it or not, is their number 10 prospect, goaltender Philip Desrosiers. It was between him and their number 7 prospect, defenseman Julius Honka. And there's a reason I chose Desrosiers. He was their second round, 54th overall pick in 2013, and last season he was the starter for the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, Sidney Crosby's old team. And through 52 games played, 31 wins, 14 losses and 7 overtime losses with a 265 goals against average and 907 save percentage. He's 6'1", 195 pounds. He'll be 19 in 4 days. But what really for me stood out about with this kid is that he set a Quebec Major Junior Hockey League record with a 243-minute and 35-second shutout streak and went 7-3 with a 234 goals against average and 917 save percentage in 11 playoff games. And he also had a 14-game winning streak, the 5th longest streak in league history, and ranked 4th in the league in goals against average, 7th in save percentage, 5th in wins, and 5th with 5 shutouts. Unbelievable. The kind of history this goaltender set in the QMJHL last year, you just can't replicate that. And for a league that's not really known for its goaltending, for Philip Desrosiers to come up and be that good for the Rimouski Oceanic, that deserves praise. He's not even the top goaltender on this top 10 list. That would be Jack Campbell, their 11th overall pick in 2010. But I think this goaltender has a bright NHL future. He's my first goaltender to highlight in the top 10 prospects. But this kid is just going to be something absolutely special. I can feel it. This kid is going to be really, really good. I can feel it. So Philip Desrosiers is my top prospect, and he is a goaltender. The history he made in the QMJHL cannot go unnoticed. Now, the player on this Dallas Stars team that I think needs to be better in order for the Dallas Stars to be a playoff team this year. This is actually a really tough decision, and I really don't think it's going to be... I mean, you're always going to fall back on the goaltenders, Kari Lehtinen, Anders Lindback, all them. But honestly, when it comes to a team like the Dallas Stars, you got to look at the players who can improve from last year. And other than Sergei Gonchar, there was really nobody who did better who really played bad last year. And, Sergei Gonchar, he's not my choice only because he is 40 years old, and he's really not going to be better. You could look at it all you want, but Sergei Gonchar is not going to be my choice. My choice for a player who has to be better this season would probably have to be, it's a really tough decision, but I guess if I were to really look at it close enough, this is actually a really hard one. I think in the end, I'm probably going to say Erik Cole. And why I'm going to say Erik Cole, yeah, he's 35 years of age, and he's going to be 36 in November, but he's a player who has shown year in and year out the potential to be better. He's a strong power forward, handles the puck well, and, last year he was only okay offensively, and defensively he was flat out horrendous. His worst defensive year ever. A -17, a career low for him. That's something that needs to change. Erik Cole is a guy who's known for his puck possession and his grit and his clutch goal scoring. He didn't really show much of that last year. And if he truly is going to be slotted on the second line with guys like Jason Spezza and Ales Hemsky, then there definitely has to be room for improvement, because playing on a second line, you may not have as high of expectations playing on a second line rather than a first line, but the expectations are still there. If you're playing with Jason Spezza, who, even though he's playing on the second line, plays more like a top line guy, you have to be better. There's no doubt about it. So Erik Cole, for me, as tough as the decision was, Erik Cole is the player who I think needs to have a good season in order for the Dallas Stars to be a better team. overall, do I think the Dallas Stars are a playoff team? I think it's very, very, very close. This is actually really hard to say because, yes, they made the playoffs last year and they showed great strides, and there's no problems up front on offense, and the goaltending is good enough. The defense is where it's concerning, and the other big concern is also in the special teams. That horrendous power play of theirs last year, and they're not as horrendous, but still rather horrendous penalty kill last year were two really big problems. They did not get off to a great start on home ice, and if that stayed consistent throughout the year, it would have been the Phoenix Coyotes in the playoffs and not them. If they have a setback year, there's going to be a lot of questions, and this edition of the Dallas Stars is going to be looked at as one of the big busts of the National Hockey League. I mean, you got to be concerned about Valeri Nichushkin and the possibility of going through a sophomore jinx. You got to be concerned about a lot of the youngsters coming up and maybe underachieving. What Jim Nill has built is a fast, hard-working team, one of the fastest teams in the NHL, if not the fastest team in the NHL, and one of the best offensive teams in the NHL when playing 5-on-5. But they're not a good defensive team, and their power play wasn't good at all. So they need to be a better team as far as their specialty teams. If they cannot improve on that, if their defense doesn't hold up and their special teams don't perform well, then they're not going to be a playoff team. If they can fix that defense core of theirs and be better with their special teams, and if their goaltending can be better than good, then yes, they will be a playoff team. Which way do I think it's going to go? Really tough to say, but for now, I'm going to subject my opinion to change in a later video if necessary, but for now, I'll say yes that they are a playoff team, but they're still a bubble team. Reason being, look at the Minnesota Wild, the Chicago Blackhawks, the St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche. Those were the teams that were better than the Dallas Stars within the division, and they all got better this offseason. The Dallas Stars, they got better too, but now they have to play like they've gotten better, and they have to play like one of the deeper teams in the league. Even with the addition of Jason Spezza and the addition of Ales Hemsky, I'm still a little concerned about their ability to be better than those four other Central Division teams that we mentioned, who also got better through free agency. The other teams are just a bit deeper, and we're going to talk about them in the coming days. But ultimately, I think the Dallas Stars, if they even do make the playoffs, which I do think they will, and they definitely can, they're probably going to be back in that 7th or 8th seed position. They'll be back in the wild card spot. So, I think they are a bubble team, and I think they're nothing more than a wild card team, but I think they're above and beyond what the Nashville Predators are, and I think they're, better than the Phoenix Coyotes, or now the Arizona Coyotes, especially after they lost Mike Ribeiro. They don't look as deep this year, but we'll see. But, yeah, ultimately, I do think the Dallas Stars will make the playoffs. I'm going to say yes, the Dallas Stars are a playoff team. So even though they're not going to be any better than the 7th seed, fans in Dallas, you can look forward to a second straight postseason appearance for your Dallas Stars teams that didn't make it for 6 straight years up until last year. So yes, the Dallas Stars are a playoff team. And that will do it for episode 143 of Hockey on the Spot. Be sure to tune in tomorrow when we continue the NHL's 30 teams in 30 days, when we talk about the Minnesota Wild. Until then, this has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again tomorrow. Thank you, and have a great day.